Thinking about getting a BMW? Maybe you're on the fence with the 2 Series because it doesn't have the same branding as the 3, 4, and 5 Series. Well, you're in luck because in today's video, we're going over the top 5 reasons to fall in love with the 2 Series, specifically the M235i. Let's get into it.
What's up everybody, my name is Fritz and welcome to the channel. With Valentine's Day right around the corner, it's a good time for us to go over the top 5 things to love about the M235i. Considering that I've had this car for a while now, some of the main reasons why I bought this car made our list today, and others I've actually grown to love while driving the M235i. But this list isn't exclusive to this car and probably pertains to most of the cars in the 2 Series lineup. And the first thing to love about the M235i, and this actually applies to the entire 2 Series lineup, comes right when you purchase the car or as you're shopping for the car, and that is its initial price point. Because compared to its 3 and 4 Series counterparts, this car is much cheaper, all options being equal. This is really good for those of you who consider yourselves as driving enthusiasts, because you're not going to be distracted by the bells and whistles of the other models. You're going to be able to get into the BMW ecosystem and into a car that focuses really on your driving experience. But the cost savings doesn't end at the point of purchase, but actually continues throughout your ownership of the 2 Series. Because when you consider that the 2 Series borrows a lot of internal components from the 3 and 4 Series, which are heavier and longer cars, and you put those components into the 2 Series, which is a shorter, lighter weight car, those components are going to last longer, leading to less frequent intervals, saving much more money for you in the future. So if you're looking to just get into the BMW ecosystem and save some money, the 2 Series is the way to go.
And now that we're on the topic of size, we can segue into the second thing to love about the 2 Series, which in fact is its size and weight. That BMW advertised to have a perfect 50-50 weight distribution of its entire 3,400-ish pounds, depending on what packages are on the car. Pair this with its other dimensions, most notably its wheelbase, and this is the closest modern-day BMW to match those specs in the E36 and E46 M3. And the reason why this is so important is because this is what the BMW reputation was founded on with the E30 M3, and then continued further on with the E36 and E46 M3. It wasn't until that E90-ish generation of M3 that BMW started to get away from that heritage. And then it was very evident that they were going in a completely different direction with the release of the F80 M3. So if you're somebody who really appreciates the BMWs of old, this is the modern day version of that, which does deliver on that promise of the ultimate driving machine. It's not going to be the fastest car in the world. It's not the most luxurious car in the world, but it handles like a gem. It's going to be able to maneuver out of situations with much more ease and has just enough power to maneuver the way that you want and get you out of trouble if called upon. And to put this into perspective for potential first-time BMW owners, if you've ever taken a turn that's a little bit longer and then narrows down at the end, so a longer, sharper turn, you probably realize that starting in the middle and towards the end of the turn, you have to change your steering inputs in order to account for the rear wheels if you don't want to catch that curve. You shouldn't have that issue with the 2 Series because it's going to come into alignment with the rest of the car very quickly. Not to the point where it whips you around or anything, but you're just going to have very smooth steering input in order to get the car to complete that turn. Now, the benefits of this car's small nature is not restricted to just when you're driving, but also when you're parking. Take, for instance, parallel parking, which, believe it or not, is one of the biggest factors that led me to the M235i when I was shopping. My older car was much longer and a little bit harder to maneuver, so I couldn't squeeze it into tighter areas that the M235i could, which led me to either circling around the block a couple of times or parking farther. Because I have to parallel park a lot for work, in literal terms, this car has saved me a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of headache. Even if you go to the grocery store and have to put it into a space like this, you could slide your car a little bit further back and if you can find a van or a truck to hide behind, your car is going to be protected from those wandering shopping carts. But don't let its small size fool you, because I've never gone to the grocery store, even at a Costco, and have run out of space when it comes to putting groceries in this car. Worst case scenario, I throw the groceries in the back seat, or if I have something a little bit bigger, I can fold down the rear seats in order to accommodate for those larger items. So although this car has all the benefits of a smaller compact size, it's still good enough to lug around a few items if you need it to.
And that small size and nature of the car is only enhanced by the number 3 thing to love about the 2 Series, which lies right at its core, in the engine bay. Although the 2 Series is the smallest car in the mainstream BMW lineup, that doesn't mean that it gets a smaller engine. Unless, of course, we're talking about the M2, but we'll get to that point at the end of this segment. Because the base model 2 Series, the 228i, got the same engine as its 3 and 4 Series counterpart with the N20 engine. So you have the same power outputs in a smaller car. And then BMW reiterated that when they revised the 2 Series to make the 230i the base model and gave it the B48 engine. But here's where the M235i and M240i shine, because they have the strongest B58 and N55 engine in any non-M car. This is the biggest value proposition here, because we have a smaller, lighter weight car with the most amount of power before stepping into an M car. And that's one of the main reasons why I decided to get the M235i as opposed to any of the other 2 Series in the lineup, because it is by far the best bang for your buck value.
And now onto the depressing story of the M2's engine. But this is not a shot at M2 owners, potential M2 owners, or the M2 itself. It's just bringing to light the fact that BMW thought if they spec'd out an M2 as they would an M3 or M4, it would hurt the sales of those cars. And this is exactly why the first gen M2 came out with that beefy N55 engine. But realizing that people were so upset about that, they finally put in the proper M engine with the S55 inside the M2 competition. But since they were still worried about the M3 and M4 sales, they had to throttle down that engine. It wasn't until BMW came out with the last generation of M2 in the M2 CS that they finally put in an unhindered S55 engine. But BMW couldn't let bygones be bygones. They still had to find ways to nitpick at that M2 CS in order to make it seem somewhat less desirable than its M3 and M4 equivalents. So it did things like take away the comfort access system and use inferior leather on the M seats. They had to do little things like this to make it seem not as good. But to the driving enthusiast and the longtime BMW fans, the M2 is the way to go. And even with all of those things in mind, I would still pick the M2 over the M3 and M4, because there's a workaround for those things. You just retrofit the seats, you retrofit the comfort access. No matter what you do, the DIYers will find a way.
But when we zoom out and look at the car from this perspective, we're met with the number 4 thing to love about the 2 Series, which is its own unique styling and detail. Unlike the 3 and 4 Series that borrow a lot of inspiration and sometimes the same exterior parts, like the hood, bumper, and headlights, not to mention the rear of the car, the 2 Series has its own unique style. And that's exactly why I love this car so much, because you can identify it from any angle. Take, for instance, the hood, where the edge comes down to meet the headlights instead of running clearly over the top. Then when your eyes follow that down to the headlights, you have a nice sharp point instead of that squared off finish that we have in the 3 and 4 Series. And I would argue that the M2 competition came out with the best looking bumper in the F generation lineup of all BMWs. And then when we get to the rear of the car, it's a very simple design. And yes, it doesn't have all the fanciness of GTS taillights, and it is a one-piece design. But as somebody who never sees their own taillights, it's much easier to service with this one-piece design that doesn't extend into the actual trunk, which makes modifications to the trunk, like swapping it out or adding a wing, much easier for those of you who plan to track your car, or you just want that different aesthetic look when it comes to your 2 Series. And the cosmetic differences don't end at just the exterior. It actually extends into the interior of the car. And when we get inside, we're met with a very sporty yet basic interior. And here's where the M235i as well as the M240i shine, because you get this sports style interior standard. It's only the base model 2 Series that you have to upgrade to it. And then the M2, if you want things like the carbon fiber trims, you might have to pay a premium for that. But my interior is a little bit of a bad example because we did retrofit the M4 seats as well as the carbon trim, but the M235i right out of the box has a very good interior. It has those sport seats that hug you a little bit more and help you be more engaged as you're driving rather than sliding when you're taking a harder turn. You even get the sportier steering wheel. This just goes to the idea that the M235i and the M240i are the best bargain in not just their category, but the entire BMW lineup, because so many of the upgrade features that people have to pay for in their BMWs, these cars get standard. If you're somebody who just wants to get in your car and drive, this is the interior that you want, because it's no extra, no fluff, no muss. You just get in the car and it just says, drive me. And for those of you who are DIYers, you're gonna love this interior as opposed to the 3 and 4 series, because the interior trims in here that you have to remove to get access to things are pretty beefy in their design. They're not really long in the tooth or have a thin carbon piece that runs all the way across that you have to be very gentle with. And then when you're storing it, you also have to be careful. It's also very unique in its design to the 3 and 4 series. The 2 series has its own unique look from the inside out, and that is something to be very proud of. And now that you caught me in the driver's seat, we can talk about the 5th and final thing to love about the M235i. But by no means are there only 5 things to love about this car. It's just to help me not talk about this car days on end. But the last thing that I want to bring to light is that this is a true driving / DIYer car. Because it doesn't have all that extra stuff, it's so much easier to work on. And because of its lighter weight and shorter wheelbase, every time you do a modification, it's going to be noticeable. Even something simple as doing sway bar end links are noticeable on this car. And one thing that I really didn't think that I would notice was doing the thrust arms and lower control arms on the car. I was doing that just to help dial in a little bit of camber so I could get a squared wheel setup. In addition to that, I got rid of the wheel hop entirely, which I was ecstatic about. And I absolutely love and recommend if anybody's wondering what is one of the first things to do on the car after you've taken care of the routine maintenance. The lower control arm and thrust arm are clutch on this car. And maybe that's because the car has electronic steering, but it's still very noticeable and something that you'll never regret doing. And all of the modifications that I've done to this car since have only enhanced my love for this car. Even if you're somebody who doesn't want to modify your car and you just want to use the stock components until they're in need of servicing, you could do that with the M235i, no problem. But you'll still get all the additional benefits of a superior handling machine with enough power to maneuver the way that you need it to, while still saving some gas if you're using it as a daily. The big thing is that you just need to know what you're getting and does it identify with you and your driving style. If you just want a simple car with no extras, this is the BMW for you. If you want a car that's easy to work on and all the modifications noticeable, this is the car for you. As somebody who's done so many things on this car, has driven it so many miles, I don't plan on getting rid of this car anytime soon, and I enjoy it every time I get inside. No shot at the 3 Series owners out there, but when I drive my dad's F30, there's just something missing. I don't have that rawness of a true driving experience. I feel a little bit more removed. It is a little bit more comfortable and still handles pretty well, but that rawness of a true driving experience, I get from my M235i. And there it is, the top 5 things to love about the M235i. But let me know, what are your top 5 things that you love about your BMW down in the comment section below. Whether or not that you have a 2 Series, let me know which car that you have and what are the top 5 things that you love about your car. If you need any of the resources that we talked about in today's video, it's going to be down in the description links. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos, and enjoy your Valentine's Day with somebody that you care about in the car you care about. And I'll see all of you in the next one.